Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
My name is Seth Studley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and today we have Mr. and Mrs. Kev on stage, Melissa and Kev. What's up, y'all?
Hello,
guys.
the Love Hour podcast.
Yeah, they're from the Love Hour podcast and about 150 different other things. And these guys are awesome.
You ain't lying.
They said this, not us. Melissa said that our show is the white version of their show. So it's like, all right, I'll chill with that because they bring the content, they bring the funny, they bring so much awesomeness that you guys are going to love it. So,
And we have it's funny because lots of people found us through y'all. They'll be
Really?
like, they're like, I found out about you from the Love Hour podcast. And we're like, who are these people? So
I'm
it's
telling you, I'm a huge
Melissa
fan.
shares the love.
Yeah, I do.
When it's something she likes,
I
she
do.
has no problem sharing the love.
Good, well, thank you.
Yeah.
And we're in their studio, just by the way.
Kev
Yes.
Melissa Studios Incorporated Subsidiary LLC.
This is
All
not
the
our
things.
house.
all the things. Yeah.
So why don't y'all tell us a little bit about yourselves, what you do, your podcast, everything for people who don't know you.
Oh, am I
Please.
starting? Okay, so Kevin and I, very similar to Seth and Melanie's story. We got married really young. We were 20 and 21 years old when we got married. We grew up very churchy, and I was a virgin on my wedding day. And so I struggled a lot with like owning my sexuality, recognizing that that is purpose by design. God intended my body for pleasure, and that is something I don't need to be shamed about or, any of that kind of thing. But it took a long time to come to that realization to where I am today. At the time, I felt a lot of, like I said, just shame and guilt and all of those things. And so I carried that into my bedroom. And as I have done the work to kind of unpack that and relearn and retrain my mind, I started sharing my story. And with that, a lot of people, a lot of women started to speak up and identify. And from that spawned the Love Hour. And so we did a live event in Seattle. Well, actually in Tacoma, but yeah, it's the same. CTEX, all the same area. In Tacoma, how many years ago? 10 years ago?
It was a minute ago.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was a long
It was
time
10 years
ago.
ago. It was almost.
Yeah. And so we did it once, and then we started the podcast once we moved out to LA, and we kind of been off and on. And then we toured it last year, and then we toured it again this year, and we decided to take the podcast version of the show more seriously. So we've been doing that very consistently since December.
Nice.
And Kevin is
Melissa's husband and comedian extraordinaire. You might have seen me on your Facebook or Instagram feed or Twitter feed or YouTube page, but I'm a great father, great husband,
One of the best.
great overall man. I'm great at all the things I do.
That's what's in my YouTube feed. It's just Kev, great father.
right.
And that's it.
That's why we clicked it. Oh.
who is this person? He's
Yeah.
great.
So, we're just getting to know you guys and our listeners. We want all of our listeners to go follow all your
Yeah,
guys'
check out
stuff.
everything you're
And
doing.
so, we'll just ask some questions about like your story. Like, I want to know how you got into comedy. Like, what like really made you guys decide to put on a marriage event when you were super young married? Because that's pretty up there. That's
What did we do?
I'm
the
going to
first
tell
one?
you. So again, actually, it was more like, I'm so churchy, so forgive me. I feel like it was God ordained in a way that I didn't realize at the time. Okay. So I believe that my natural gifting is teaching. I believe that's a gift that God has just naturally given me. And so I've always taught, like, even as a teenager, I would teach like my peers, at church. I would teach Sunday school. I would teach even children's church, all of those things. And then fast forward, after we got married, we went to his aunt's house, and she had the 5 love languages just kind of out, and she was like, you should read this, Melissa, it's great. And I read it and was like, oh, this information I didn't know. How come we aren't talking about this? And so I presented it to our pastor and first lady, and they decided, Melissa and Kev, you guys should present on this. And so I taught it. And then I just fell in love with the genre of love and relationships. So I've read just a ton of books. The book I read after that was Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I know nowadays people like hate that book because it's not like clinically sound. I loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was so just like, my mind was the literal emoji where the brain is like this, It was just information I had never heard, thought, people talked about at all. And so it was just really just like, what is happening in life that nobody's talking about this? And so from there, and that's where I think I got the love of like finding resources, because I found myself truly learning about things no one was talking about.
That is how I feel about, I don't know if you know any of like Dr. Dan Siegel's stuff he's an interpersonal neurobiologist. He was on season 1 of our show. And when
I was like, why is this name so familiar? But I don't know his work.
I
Okay,
have
tell me
such a
more.
crush on this man. Oh, and he lives in Santa Monica. He's like totally whatever, who cares? But he is amazing. And when I read his work about interpersonal neurobiology, and he's talking about the way your brain works and how synapses are created and like you're rewiring, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, I'm like, why is no one talking about this? Like everyone needs to know this, just like with the love languages. So I totally feel that and I love it. But
I feel like that was the first time that we had something that put words to our feelings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the idea of like a love tank and we're speaking different languages, it was like, because we were at marriage enrichment at our church, and our pastor would teach, and he was talking about love languages without knowing he was talking about it. And I realized what I was doing is I was loving Melissa with my pastor's wife's love language, because her love language was gifts. So he would talk from his point of view, and I'm like, okay, so let me
It works for them.
It worked great for
Right.
him.
Yeah.
So let me go apply it to Melissa. And she didn't dislike gifts, but it wasn't her love language. So I wasn't seeing the same results as he was. And I was just like, man, this is just not working that way. And then when I read the 5 love languages and we took the test, and I was like, oh, this makes a lot more sense.
And it was so funny at the time that this was happening. It really was causing like an argument, because he's literally expecting me to be like so happy and excited. And not that I wasn't grateful, but like you're expecting me to be jumping up for joy, and that's not how I understand a receipt. So really just like, thank you. I appreciate that. That's it.
Yeah, she definitely wasn't rude, but it was not like
there wasn't the response he was looking for.
Right.
And so he would be like, well, pastor said, and first
and
lady
he's the
responds
pastor
like
on
this.
top of that.
Right.
So it's like, bruh, God probably told him this.
Yes.
And you ain't saved good.
You
'cause
know,
it's not
you
working
put a
for
lot
you.
of weight on what your pastor says.
Yeah.
You put a lot of weight on that. And so he's looking at me like, pastor said, and his first lady responds like this. How come? Something must be wrong with you. And so I remember saying, I'm not married to the pastor, and you're not married to the first lady. Like, we're literally like, why is this causing an argument? But we didn't understand. I didn't really understand myself. And actually, it's so funny you said that. One of the goals that I have with the podcast is to put words to people's feelings. We just talked about that before, where you just feel like, I don't know why this isn't working, but it's not working, and that's it.
Right.
Like, you don't know, oh, my actual love language is this, and gifts, ranks really low for me, and that's why it doesn't really, you don't have that language. But as you educate people, as I've educated myself, I've been able to identify and articulate those feelings and put words to those feelings. So I just don't have an attitude all day, and all of those things. And so that's been one of our personal goals, and that's what part of the reason I do the Love Hour podcast to begin with, is to say, first of all, you're not alone. I have felt like this, and this is why I have felt. So people can be like, me too. Girl,
to normalize
me
that.
to normalize it.
Like, so for real, have you ever felt like when you guys were doing the show talking about stuff, like you find, I'm working through my own stuff right now?
100%.
All the time. It feels very vulnerable to be putting our feelings out that are fresh.
Right.
Because at first, when we first did the podcast, it was all this stuff happened back then.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easier to talk about that stuff. Man, we was crazy then. I did this, man. It's wild.
We didn't know.
Yeah. Now, that stuff that happened last Thursday, you don't necessarily feel as comfortable, because a lot of times they're not worked through all the way.
Right.
You're literally working on it. Sometimes we've understood our feelings more because of the podcast. You definitely felt more accountable from doing it. I was talking about it on another episode. Sometimes on the tour, we'd be beefing, and then we'd have to get it together for the Love Hour Live, and that was like a help. It helped us, because we got to come together and act like we love each other, so we might as well love each other. So it's definitely been a great help for us too. So we just want to be open and honest about stuff as it's happening real time, and let people know. I feel like Melissa said this before.
So good.
Knowing that you are not alone, that you are not abnormal, is so comforting.
Yeah.
We even talk about, even just outside of marriages, like, even like body types. I saw this video, and this is like changed my life for a minute. It was talking, because I be wanting to get in shape, and then I just don't be doing the stuff to do it. I just don't. And I was actually
all the
day,
listeners, same, Kev, same.
somebody was like, they wanted to see a picture of my biological father, and I showed it, and they were like, "Oh, I see your body type. Like I see why now, because he's built like you. He's a big dude. He carries his weight here in his stomach." And I was like, "It is not my fault. Right? it's my family. Like Melissa's family, her parents, her dad has still had abs, and her mom's super strong. So the kids all have that, and I'm just like, I don't like mine. You know what I mean? But anyway, this video I saw, this lady was training sled dogs. And she was saying, like, all these body types are different. Some of these dogs need a lot of food and they don't put on a little weight. Some of these dogs take one bite and they gain 10 pounds. Yeah. Some can run for miles. Some can run with no training. Others need a lot of training. And a lot of that is just genetic. So if our bodies can be on a different scale of normal, then so can our marriages.
Exactly.
Knowing that you're not abnormal. Like even when we were talking when we did our podcast, like, I feel like I'm an emotional wreck, and I have been, and I haven't shared my feelings. And I'm like, man, I just, probably this is just me. Yeah. And then you said that was you, and I'm like, whew. And for whatever reason, it just feels good when you are not the only person who does something that you feel like you're the only person that does it. Right. You know what I mean? Like, it feels so comforting to know that you are not. Like Michael Jackson said, you are not.
I thought you were going to start singing Man in the Mirror. I was like, well, that's true, too.
I was like, what song is this? It's so funny.
Yeah, one of the things that I love about both of our shows is that, Dan Siegel, the guy I totally have a crush on, one of the things he said to me when I was interviewing him, because I kind of stumbled over a question. I felt really stupid, and I was like, I wasn't going to ask this. I'm sorry, blah, blah, and I was trying to be all weird. And he's like, no, the process is the content. And I was like, wait. And I sat there for a minute until I got what he said, and I was like, oh, he means like the journey is the thing we need to talk about. It's not just the outcome.
Cue Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
It's not the destination.
It's the climb.
It's the climb.
It's the climb. Man, that song, listen, that came out right before we moved to LA. Yep. And I was like weighing, should we move it? And that song came out. I was be walking by myself, like almost crying, like, it's the climb.
That's your Kelly Clarkson.
So, so I can be listening to like Miley Cyrus or who knows who, Kelly Clarkson, and just that chorus and that like hook. I'm like,
What is yours? Kelly loves Kelly Clarkson.
Well, not really. Just that one song just gets you every time.
It always makes me laugh. Yeah. But anyway, so I just love that that's what our shows are about, is the journey and the process. They're not like, do this, here's the outcome. It's everyone's different. It's a continuum. All relationships are different. Everyone's family of origin is different. How do we make these things? How do we get enough knowledge, get enough skills, get all the tools we need to make them work well, where we all feel loved, held well, respected, and all those things. And when we talked on the phone, I think it was like Thursday, and we started talking about what should we talk about on our show. And we got to, you started talking about sexual shame and purity culture, and you led with a story on that phone call was amazing. I want you to, amazing might be the wrong word.
But I got you.
It's a story. Share it.
Yes, I will share this story. So again, we grew up very, very churchy, and I remember in our teen group, and actually I don't remember, she may have done this actually on like Sunday morning at the altar, and my first lady prayed a prayer. Do you remember this? Were you there? Where she prayed a prayer. I'm trying to remember if you were there or not. That if any of us teenagers at the time are having sex, that God would, that we would be found out and that we would get pregnant.
Yes, I remember.
Were you there?
No, I remember you guys talked about this. It's a very impactful statement.
It was so impactful. It was so It didn't happen. Well, it happened to her though. That was the funny part about it. It was her child that ended up pregnant.
It did.
No. But to be clear, thereafter the next person was my sister.
Wow.
Yep.
That's also just how sex works though. If you have unprotected sex, you
that
can
is
get pregnant.
true. But I mean, it was
ain't the Lord like, boom, boom.
Listen.
That's it.
Yeah. And so, but what that did for me, because my natural like disposition and personality is that I'm like very much a rule abider. Okay. I'm like, these are the rules. We must follow the rules.
Her too.
I am too.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I've known from the beginning that you are my ivory.
Let me
and
tell
I'm
you
your
how
ebony.
bad
My
she is.
ivory.
Oh, say it again. I mean, I was like,
Your ivory what?
I said I've known from the beginning that she was the ivory to my
God.
ebony.
Let me tell you how much of a rule follower she is. When people want to hook you up with free food and stuff or free movie tickets, everybody knows the look of like, don't worry about it. I got you. Right?
Yep.
She is so unaware of the look. People have tried to hook us up. This ain't even just fans. Just like people like, nah, I ain't tripping, man.
Yeah.
Go take a free popcorn. Melissa will be like, I did not pay for this item. You did not charge me for this item. I'll be like, girl, they trying to
get them in trouble now.
They're trying to give this to her. Well, why would they give it to her? We did not pay for the item. I'd be like, girl, you didn't see the look?
Yeah.
I always miss it every time.
She never sees the look.
I'm completely oblivious to any looks that
she
are
wants
being
to pay.
given.
I will pay you for this. Like, we had biscuits. We had free movie tickets. We had free popcorn, shoes. They are letting us take this away.
I'm completely oblivious.
Be aware so we can steal.
Yeah. Well, not even stealing. They're hooking you up. Like,
Oh my gosh.
she gets mad at me and turns it into some kind of character flaw, and then I'm like, I'm like,
I do too, though.
what am I?
You're
Am I
trying
like
to break the rules?
Yeah.
Why are you always trying to break the
I-
rules?
I'm like, no,
This is God's gift.
I mean, okay, he's a schemer.
God's
You over there
gift.
scheming.
Anyway, so you were telling your story.
Yes.
What were we
So
saying?
after she prayed this prayer, and it worked, and I think actually that was probably more impactful than the prayer, is actually seeing people being like found out, so to speak. And so what it did, and I don't know, I was probably like more predisposed to like acting a certain way because I am such a rule follower. So I remember, just again, follow my mind. I remember watching a movie as a kid, and the woman said to like her mom or something like that, I want the guy that I first kissed to be the person that I marry. And I was like, this is such a great thing. This, like, I should do this. And so growing up like churchy, having that moment, having the moment with my pastor's wife, I'm like, I'm going to be a virgin on my wedding day. And so I internalized the good girl syndrome.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a good girl. I wanted God to shine his light upon me. Yes.
You want heaven
And
to open up on your married day
yes,
like,
and I am the
well
one
done, my good and
that
faithful
is, like,
servant.
ascending because I have been, yes, well done, thy good and faithful. I have been so pure to the point where pure and good girl became a part of me. It became my personality, you know? And so when we got married, I didn't realize, I call it brainwashing, and this is my own personal definition of brainwashing, is holding on to the lie after being confronted with the truth. So I have educated myself where I know better, and I still have a hard time letting go.
Yeah.
And to me, that's brainwashing.
Yeah.
And so we've been married now, and I still 15 years, and I still struggle with the impact of those things from early on.
Dang. 15 years.
15
That
years.
stuff is in you.
Yeah.
That's something.
I've lit, it's more, and that's why I say, like, I've more than like internalized, it became a part of my identity. It's probably
Core
a better
programming.
way. It became a part of my
DNA,
core
yeah.
programming as far as who I am. And if I associate, if I value my salvation, I value my relationship with Christ, and to me, closely related to that is my purity.
Right.
Being able to, disassociate those two things, where to me they are so like connected. That's a whole unweaving, child. I wasn't ready for.
And one of the things that we found that was really interesting is that the good girl syndrome and purity culture and all that stuff, it was so valuable in her getting to the point of being a virgin on her wedding day. And then once she was married, it became instantly harmful.
Instant.
It was it was no longer valuable information.
Yep.
And now the same thing that got you to virginhood made you that much harder of wifedom.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? Like,
Is
the
this
sexual,
okay? I still feel weird about
yes,
this. All
those
kinds
feelings are ingrained. Like,
Yep.
I didn't even realize that little. I mean, you told me that story about you seeing the whatever it was that made you want to, the first guy
the
you kissed, the movie. So this is like your little moment as a 6-year-old, and then just constantly reinforced, and then the other people getting pregnant is also reinforcing.
Yes.
Like, and then those people, like, that pregnancy was difficult. Like, literally, where you wanted to do with your life, the people who got pregnant, you can't go to college the way you wanted to. You got to come back home. You can't go away. Her sister wanted to go away to college. She had a scholarship.
Nah, to the yes.
Yeah, she could have went away to college.
Yeah.
Sorta.
But you have a baby, you can now do. So
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, so this is like, see what happens
Yeah.
when you have sex, you get pregnant, and when you get pregnant, you can't do stuff you want to do,
And it
now you can't go to
reinforces that
college,
narrative, yeah.
and it reinforces what you always thought that this is right. And then your husband comes in and is like, all right, man, back that thing up, throw it in the air. She's like, oh, it's not holy.
Right.
It's not holy and proven to be the Lord's sex. This is the Lord's sex. It should be done only the Lord's way, missionary only. I don't know how much of myself I could be. I don't know you.
All of it.
Missionary is the only safe way. And it's funny that I grew up in the same purity culture and had none of this.
Well, and
Yeah.
that's what I was
Thought.
going to ask
It's
you.
different.
What is your
Literally
version
none.
of that? Because, and you have a story to share that I don't even know what the story is, but it's Lake Robinson.
It's a real story.
Something. It's a real story, but I want to know your.
So I grew up same church
Mm-hmm.
thing. I didn't see that movie she saw. I wanted to emulate what men did, which was my brother, and in film, and you go out and you got girls.
Mm-hmm.
Right. You had sex with them, you convinced them to have sex with you. If you were a virgin on your wedding day, you were a loser.
Right.
Not a winner. So I remember when I was really a virgin, lying to my friends like, I ain't no virgin, man. I don't have sex with this girl, that girl. And then when I actually really had sex, and I told my friends, they're like, oh, you had sex for real? We were just joking. I was like, wait, what?
No.
They're like, no, man, I don't know, man. We're 15. What are we?
So you guys were all just like fronting
all
to each other.
lying.
Oh.
And so it's like that 40-year-old virgin when they asked him what boobs feel like. He was like, bags of sand. They're like, hold up, you could have never have touched the boobs. That's right. So I must have said something that made them realize that this was like real. So now I realized I was competing with people and I wasn't even competing with them.
Right.
And actually, part of the reason I got with Melissa is because I was feeling super convicted about having sex, and I was wanting to stop. And I was like, she's a good girl. She's not. These other girls in high school were they were the devil's daughters. They were trying to throw the sin at me. And Melissa, I was just like, oh, she's a good girl for real, and this will help me get back on the right track, which was true. Is what I really wanted to do. But I did not have the same convictions. That stopped me. I used to feel bad afterwards, and I go to church and I promise the Lord I'm never going to do this again. Born again virgin.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Dear Lord, I will never touch booty again.
Oh my gosh! I remember one time I was actually like in the process of having sex, and I was praying like, God, this doesn't feel good, Lord. It doesn't. It does.
It doesn't.
I promise. After this sex, this is the last sex.
After this sex.
This is no more sexes after this. This is the worst.
The last
But what
sex.
did the church tell you about sex? Is it different for guys?
It was. I don't know that it was different. I just didn't internalize any of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we were all like, people were having sex. We had a little house behind our church where we did like Sunday school, and like my cousin was having sex with girls at church. We were at church so much that we just started sinning there. Like, you're not going to give us time outside of this to sin. We were just going to bring it in.
We're gonna make
So
time.
we were like
Find it.
kissing
Oh my
behind
gosh,
church. You
that's
know, have like
funny.
revivals that are super late. Somebody like his dad had the key, so he like snuck the key back there. He would take turns and stuff. So it was just like everything was fire and brimstone.
Yeah.
So it was like, I mean, we're going to go to hell for going to the movies,
Yeah.
wearing pants, earrings. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we're just going to go to hell then. You know what I mean? Like, everything was bad. So I didn't feel that same thing. I just repented all the time.
Yeah.
Right.
I did feel the
Yeah.
guilt afterwards.
You sound like you went to church like in the South or something.
I went to church in the South, in Texas.
In Texas, right?
And I went to church,
Oh.
no lie, 4 days a week,
Yep.
3 services on Sunday,
Yep.
all day.
And Wednesday.
And Tuesday, Thursday, Friday choir rehearsal, Saturday also book rehearsal, Sunday morning, Sunday school, church, afternoon or night church.
Yeah.
Every week for like
I thought you were going to say Saturday was sex in the sex house.
no. And that was probably for almost 30 years.
Wow.
I remember, man, I could probably before we moved to LA, I could probably count on one hand how many services I missed, how many Sundays. It was
Yeah.
like one Sunday in 1992 when we were in New Orleans and
We
we
don't know
drove.
these exact dates.
Like it was literally like 3 Sundays in my life by the time I went to college that I
Wow.
had
That's
missed
crazy.
Yeah.
church. So, it was a lot.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, a lot of retroactive, man, I messed up again. The devil got me type of
Yep.
stuff. But for me, not any proactive. I shouldn't be doing
Yeah.
this until
No,
I
no.
got with Melissa. Once we
Yeah.
got with Melissa, I actually did abstain. But up until then, it was just really like one summer
Yeah.
from of actually having sex. A lot of fooling around prior to that.
Yeah.
But one summer of actually having sex between my sophomore year of high school.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so-
It's so like ingrained because I was like, oh, this sounds like church in the South because like you do stuff. You do all the stuff. Everybody
Yeah.
else is doing it too.
Yeah.
And you're like, go to church on Sunday or whatever.
Right,
You're
right.
like, oh, I'm chill. So I don't know the story. Like the story, like one of my first girlfriends I lost my virginity to. It was all like nervous and stuff, and then we just kept on and kept on. And then there was like a pregnancy scare, and I was like 16, and I was just like losing my mind. I was like, oh my god,
Right.
she might be. I was
Yeah.
like, my life is
You were
over.
16?
Yeah.
Whoa.
My life is over.
I had a pregnancy scare at 16 too.
Oh,
Oy.
yeah,
I think she was just lying though.
Well, I don't think she was lying,
Yeah.
but it wasn't. It didn't happen. But
Yeah.
it was just like the scaredest I've ever been. Like 16, church, mom and dad, family. I'm 16,
Yeah.
right? And just like, just
Life
tripping.
altering. If this happens, it
It's
is shifted
OV.
the whole
It
course
is
of
done,
your life.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But no, luckily, I don't even think I told you that
No,
story.
you didn't. And
But
when he goes, I want to tell a story about this time in Lake Robinson, and he kept going. And I'm like, what are you
no, just
thinking about? And
everything
so-
about it was just like cheap and like she wasn't feeling bad. I was feeling bad, like
Yeah.
convicted
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
this
yeah.
stuff. I was like, oh, this is not cool. And then luckily it didn't happen. But that shame, like, what am I doing? It's making you like question who you are and all this
Right,
stuff.
right.
And then like or opposite of that, Melanie didn't grow up that way.
Yeah.
And she was just like,
and I think that
whatever.
I was more like how you were. I grew up in the Catholic church, but
not really
And there was
even.
messages about like don't have sex or whatever, but it was nothing like what you had.
Right.
But I also don't think I cared. Like I was like,
Yes.
whatever. Like I grew up in Seattle. You do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Oh,
You
very
literally
free.
do whatever you want. And
That's a family of origin thing too.
is.
Like
Yeah.
the region.
Yeah.
Seattle's
Yeah.
very like
Liberal.
Whatever.
very liberal.
Yeah.
We ain't tripping. Even before weed was legal in Seattle,
Yeah.
it was like, bro, ain't nobody
Yeah.
really tripping off that. The police, like I remember in right by Pike's Place, I was there a couple years before weed was legal, and people were just smoking. The police are walking around. They're just
Yeah.
like, bro, we ain't finna. It's weed.
Yeah.
We're not finna criminalize.
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
it does
So
not
it's
matter.
just very casual.
Yeah.
City. There's not much judging for that at all. Like
Yeah.
even interracial relationships are very popular in Seattle, Portland,
Yeah.
other parts of the South. It's like ooh, but in Seattle,
Yeah.
Portland, like bro, we ain't tripping about none of this stuff.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's
It's
interesting.
not raining today, so let's just be happy.
Right.
The sun is out. Shut
I see that. I
up.
see that
Yeah.
Shut up for all that other stuff.
Yeah, so that was a dynamic in our marriage because I had been having sex long before we got married. And
She was freaky. No, I'm just kidding.
I was. But I also
think I was a little bit.
But when we started dating, there was like this weird, like he's like, no, we should, and I'm like, I don't care,
Yeah.
But what I'm curious about is 'cause lots of women share their side of like, this is a shame I felt, the guilt I felt from church. But I don't often hear men share what it was like being the husband of a wife like that.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you
question.
that was a great question. One of the best. I actually remember thinking, so I was more advanced than Melissa as far as sex was going. And when we got together and started having sex, there was two things that were happening. One thing that was great about our sex is there was no condemnation, right? Because when I was having sex with these other girls, it was just
Yeah.
like, oh, this is so bad. What if I get her pregnant? What if I get STD? Once I was married to Melissa, if she got pregnant, I would have been happy.
Yeah.
I didn't feel that guilt of doing something sinful was
What's
lifted.
funny? Can I stop you really quickly?
Oh, well, yeah, you're going to do it no
Okay.
matter what I say.
Well, because I started thinking about when you said even if she got pregnant, like it was okay. Do you not realize that when we found out about my oldest son, that I was pregnant with my oldest son, we're married probably 2 years by this point, out of college, we have jobs, like we're in a position where, I mean, we're still young, but like you can have children. This is legal. And right. And I cried.
She
and-
went in her room, shut the door, and cried.
And-
right after she looked at the pregnancy test.
Yes. And
Like,
I
shut
honestly,
the door on me. We only had a one bedroom apartment. It was literally one door in our apartment, or two doors, bathroom door and our bedroom door. And the bathroom door was already closed. So she just shut the door, and I was just like, oh, she's not excited about this at all.
and now looking back on it, I almost feel like it was like a residual shame of feeling like I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be pregnant. I shouldn't like,
Really?
this is still something, maybe that prayer. I don't know. I'm like kind of thinking out loud right now.
That's true.
But probably some of that like residual shame in recognizing, girl, you are a grown woman, you are married, like this is an okay dynamic to bring a child into the world. This is a God ordained dynamic in which God, you know, if you grew up the way that I did, that this is okay, and still not fully embracing this is an okay moment. Like I was still like, what are we gonna do? And we don't have this, and we don't have that, and oh my God, like I was literally completely freaked out. And I'm starting to think that it's probably some of that residual.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
Yeah, I just thought about it right now.
So in the actual of the sexes, there was I'll use Melissa was very timid, and it was like regressive in the sex. It was like I had done not crazy stuff, but I did some things, and it was also that there was this daring part of like, since I was committing sin and dark, it was like this enticing like exhilaration of getting caught. Like I was climbing this one girl's front window, and her mom was like high up in the church. All the pastors and deacons lived in this neighborhood, and I was sneaking in the front window, and we were having sex. Her grandma was there, and like having sex at football field. So there's all this daring stuff. And now with my wife, it is very like, hello, we will have sex now. We're having sex. The sex is complete. Right. Good night. You know, so, and then like outside of like, you know, basic sexual positions and stuff, there was not much else, you know, because this is like super new to Melissa. The idea of sex overall is super new. And because she has this purity stuff, she's not interested in different things. She's not interested in expanding. It's just like, just to have sex this is a lot. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't say that she was like, I wouldn't say she was anti-sex. Like, she wasn't like, no, let's not do this. But it wasn't like, I'm going to be free and let's try this and try that. And what do you think? And let's talk about it. Let me fully invest in these emotions. What do you think about this? Should we try that? It was just like, okay, my husband wants to have sex. We will have sex. One thing that we were, a message that was conveyed a lot is once we were married is, you know, your body's not your own. This is your husband's. You know, in our church, one of the people in the church would say, lay down and be nice. So it was very...
Same first lady used to say in our women's group, like when we would talk about sex and stuff, the advice she would give is to just lay down and be nice.
Oh my goodness.
And so, I'm telling you, I came in damaged.
No,
it's horrible advice.
Like, and she took it
literal.
And so
like, I would just lay down and be nice. And I realized, okay, we're done with the visual. But I realized that I became resentful of the act. I became resentful of him. Like all of it can go in the garbage because I felt like it was a chore. I felt like it was an obligation. I felt like, and I've said this before, I felt like a object in his sex life instead of an active participant in my own.
Right.
And so I gave so much power over to him, and I didn't have any of my own. And so I wasn't invested in this at all. I felt like I had no place. My body's not my own, you know? And so I had to go through and rework that whole framework in my mind, again, of understanding that, I always say this, that pleasure is purpose by design. God is intentional. He made me this way for a reason. I am designed this way with purpose. That's God's design. And recognizing that, not even recognizing that, like fully embracing that has been a life's journey for me. It's been a life's process for me.
You know what else I just realized as you were saying that? You felt that like object in my sex life too. And that thought is also reinforced by teachings in the church, by older women. So even though you feel like this is weird and wrong, you feel, and also we were super young. So at this point, we're not like going against our parents that much, or especially not church leaders. And they're telling you, no, this is how this is the game. You lay down, your husband does what he got to do, and then y'all are done. And then so you're just like, okay, like you know, and it takes a lot of unlearning and then relearning to realize, no, it doesn't have to be like that. Matter of fact, it shouldn't be like that. You should be able to say what you want to, you know, nobody was saying you should be able to say this and y'all try this and express this and talk through it and V dates and stuff like that. It was just like, y'all have sex, you bear his children, rear his children, be there for him. He had a bad day. You should be there to receive that energy. Like that don't sound sexy.
Yeah.
No.
Like be there to receive that energy. Like that sounds like, you know, a chore, you
Yeah.
know? And so for me, a lot of times it felt like a chore. And in these past sexual relationships, the girls were so into me and it. So it like fed my ego. Like, man, hey, she wants me, man. It's Big Kev out here. You know what I'm saying? To do whatever. You know, and then Melissa's not like that. So I'm just like, does she want me?
Yeah.
Does she want? I don't feel loved.
Right.
You know, I don't
It's such
feel.
a different energy. I mean, you're coming as this like passive, lay there and be nice. Like you are not engaging. You're not participating in it, and
100%.
so that you're being met with that like a pillow.
Yeah.
You know.
It feels like robotic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just listening to you guys, like Melanie's never been, and she didn't get the message like lay there and be nice, you know. But sometimes we've had conversations on the show about this. It's like, okay, I'm touching you, and you're just laying there. I don't know if you like it or not, right? And I need some feedback, you know. Okay, do you answer a phone if it don't ring?
No.
How do I know to pick up the phone?
Bruh, let me know.
You see what I'm saying? So she's just laying there, and then we get an argument, or later get an
That
argument.
was a
And she's
great
like,
analogy.
I'm just enjoying it. I'm
Yeah, I
like,
know. There's a fine line.
how do I know?
I gotta put on a
How do
show
I know
for
if you're
you.
enjoying
We were literally, so this is a fresh thing this past weekend. And we know we're trying to work through like what feels good, how do you like this, blah, blah, blah. And Melissa said something to me that was so frustrating, but yet so clear. She was like, you know, some days what worked yesterday won't work today. And I'm like, ugh. And I'm like, so how am I supposed to know what to do? And she was like, I'm not even saying you will, because I don't know
Right.
Yeah.
how I'll feel that day.
Yeah.
What I might want you to do, I might not want that the next day. And I feel like part of me was looking for a foolproof thing.
Put your
Right.
wiener there, and
Yeah.
then it will work.
But before
No,
you
the
put your
stuff that
wiener
happens
there,
before
yeah,
that.
you do 2 boob touches, a cuddle on the butt, a neck kiss. Okay,
He wants a recipe.
It's like the Contra password: up, down,
Oh,
left, right, left, right,
Yeah.
ABAB start, and I'm like a pilot. Like I got to
Right.
do my checks,
Right.
and it should work. And it just depends. It
Yeah.
depends on the day. And so what I'm asking for is give me some guidance.
Right.
Say today it's just, man, we can get right to it.
Right.
Today I'm tired, so I don't really have a lot of energy for a whole bunch.
That needs
So
to
you're gonna
be
need
in
some
the
more
app.
warming up.
That yes.
What do we call it?
Yeah.
What should we name it?
Man, we need to work together on it because
Yeah.
we're literally trying to figure this out. Because you need kind of like a menu.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like sometimes you go to a
menu.
Such a good idea.
restaurant.
Such a good
I'm gonna tell you,
idea.
this is good. We were at a restaurant in Chicago, right? And Melissa was coming a little bit after me, not coming, but
Yeah.
coming to the restaurant.
Joining you.
Ayo. So before I get there, they have the full menu. Literally 12 appetizers. They got 10 full course, the full thing. They're like, hey, before we're going to switch over to the late night menu in 5 minutes. It is a smaller menu, 3 apps, 3 entrees, 3 desserts. So maybe in your marriage, you're like, look, man, this is a late night thing. You could do this, this, or this.
Yeah.
You know, or this is the vacation. The kids are gone. I've got plenty of time. The whole menu's available to you. Hey, tonight. I mean, and I don't think men, we won't take it personally. We won't take offense. I would almost much rather have a guide than to, because what we feel like, or what I feel like, and I don't know if you do it, I hope you do.
Probably
so I can
the
feel like you're my friend. I feel like we're going in blind and dark.
Yeah.
And hoping for the best.
Yep.
And then when it doesn't work, it feels very disheartening. You feel like, man, I don't know my wife. I don't know what she wants. You know, because in the movies and stuff, these guys, they know exactly what their woman wants
I hate
every time.
movies for this reason.
Yes.
And then with a real person with real feelings, the same. It's like food. I don't even want to eat the same thing every day.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like for whatever reason, I love Chick-fil-A. They took a little hit with the Popeye sandwich, but then Popeyes fell apart, and so they're back. But I love Chick-fil-A. But like last week, I was on a podcast. They had Chick-fil-A for lunch. Then I had it on my own one day. So Melissa's like, let's have Chick-fil-A. I'm like, ugh, I don't want Chick-fil-A. She's like, you never say that.
Yeah.
And I really didn't eat it because it's super rare, because
Yeah.
I almost every time we want it, I want it because I don't eat it that much. But this weird time, so I can see actually as I talked, that made sense to me about your body. It's just like, man, I just don't feel like that today. You know what I mean? So
I love the idea of you making like several options for like if you could have like a scrolling menu where you're like, okay, on this day I want vacation sex, but then you outline what that means to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on this other day, I want relaxation sex, which is the thing I coined when our kids were little. I was like, I do not want to be all up in here like putting on a show. I want to relax, but I still want to get some. And so I made relaxation sex a thing.
I love that.
So we
I
can
like
have
that.
relaxation sex, vacation sex. What other ones? I mean, this is
Quickie sex.
Any is fine with me.
Yeah, for real. So I remember
Annie?
one time I was going in for the kill, so to speak. And it's like, no, give me a little piece first. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, oh yeah, I could do that. I love that. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really want.
That's right.
I want a lick. You know,
So we need it to be. It needs to talk to each other.
Everything I feel like sometimes we talk more about what we want for dinner than what we want for sex.
Oh,
So
goodness,
You know what I mean?
yes.
Like, yeah, I don't want fast food. We had Italian, like, and sex is just like, all right.
That's like if Seth came to me with multiple dinners and I'm pushing the ones away that I don't want, but I never said, I don't want Italian tonight. I just said, bring them all and I'll tell you which one I like.
But for guys, okay, maybe for you too. It's like, okay, just knowing that it will happen. I don't care what kind it is.
Yeah.
You want this. Okay, fine. But that feeling of like, oh, nah, okay, it's not gonna happen tonight.
Or is it going to happen?
Or is it gonna happen?
Yes.
That ambiguity
Or
is what
thinking
kills.
it's going to happen early in the day.
That is the
and
worst.
then at night realizing
Right.
that was a 3 o'clock feeling.
Yeah. yeah.
Man, that is probably the absolute worst. Being like,
Especially-
I'm up in there today. We're home early.
Yep.
And then you go to rub the booty and it's just like,
so
nah.
good.
You're like,
Nope.
what? I've been looking forward to this since
I
3
know.
o'clock.
It's the biggest letdown.
When
Not,
did it change?
what
When
happened?
did you decide it was not going to be having this
I had
sex?
to do
Did you eat
third
something
grade
funny? You
long
don't feel
division.
that?
Your mom promised you ice cream after school. Tonight after dinner, you gonna get ice cream. Dinner is done. I clean the kitchen, put the dishes away. I want the ice cream. Oh, they ain't have none.
Oh,
But
we need it. There needs to
Do you
be a
guys think
tool
that
for
way?
that.
Do women think that way?
Well, like what you said about your body being different. Okay, I'm 1,000 miles off the microphone. When your body is different, I feel like that's the thing where I'm like, I don't know from 3 to 5 if my body's gonna do something weird or feel weird or if I'm gonna
Yeah.
feel weird.
And the thing is, your biggest sex organ is your mind.
Yep.
And so where your mind was at 3, child, at 3:01, it could be in a different space. You talking about 2, 3, 4, 5 hours? Child. By that time, I done got home. I done fought traffic. I've done third grade long division math. I've cleaned up the kitchen. Like, I've done so many things
Yeah.
that you just lay down like, oh, I'm tired. That whole burst of energy was wasted. So maybe what
It's a
you should
shame.
do is clean the kitchen, do the math, cook dinner, so my energy level can stay high. Huh? How about that? High
like
five.
that.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
we've had
High-fiving.
this conversation.
If you
like,
clean more,
no, for real. I have a list every day. Because
It
you have told me like, hey,
Oh, tell us about the list.
Okay, what is it? It's if
well,
I
it
have
was
my
our
phone.
coach. So we do coaching. We have a coach, like
Okay.
a private coach that we work with.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, he's like, Seth, you're making Melanie do everything. But like, not that he realized it. He's like, I make all the money.
Yeah.
I pay all the bills.
Yeah.
But he wasn't being like a douche about it. He
Sure.
was just like, this is a thing. And once he's like, you need to do a list that you make with Melanie of the things that she actually wants your help on. And that will help you get to all the things you want.
I love this idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so we,
Unload the dishwasher every single morning
every morning.
and fill it back up,
man, so
which I hate.
Wait, go through your list.
Yeah.
I'm taking mental notes.
Yeah. I mean, it's awesome.
I might read my own.
What else? Clean all the papers off the dining room table because usually at night we doing work and stuff. Make sure that's clean. Help get the kids ready in the morning before I go off. And what else? Oh, make the bed.
He makes
And
it better every morning.
then
Never makes
scrub the toilets on the weekends.
Dang.
I love it.
Because it was
So
like
it's
that
simple.
kind of stuff where I'm like, that adds up and you're just doing that all the time. And then you're like, 5 o'clock, I'm scrubbing your crap out of my toilet and you want some of that?
Leave me
Right.
alone.
You
Think
can
about
have-
doo-doo.
Yeah.
What do I need to do? What can I do?
I'm going to create a list. I just wanted to hear all the things. Because
Yeah.
Mel,
I
we'd
mopped
be
the
the
floor
same.
by hand the other day.
You did.
That's a good one.
I couldn't find the mop. I don't know if we had a mop, but the floor was dirty.
Yeah.
And let me tell you what happened, Seth. Okay, this is maybe how much I don't clean. This girl came home. I had to clean the kitchen, put everything. I mopped the floor by hand.
Yeah.
She came home and was like, man, I cleaned the kitchen. She thought she did it. She was like, you really been on it today.
Really?
You cleaned the kitchen. You don't even remember it. So I come home like, you notice the floor was mopped? She was like, you did that? Give me all the credit. It doesn't work if you think you did it.
Right.
You're that much of a superwoman. You thought you cleaned the kitchen
Listen.
and forgot.
I was
Yep.
coming home from soccer practice in my mind, like, I got to do this when I get home. I got to do this. And I came home like, girl, you are bad.
Yeah. That's funny.
But you can get in trouble. You can get in trouble if you're doing that. Oh, I cleaned the floor. I want that credit for it. What?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
She's not happy?
That's a lesson I learned early. You
Yeah.
cannot do that just for the sex.
No.
You have
no.
to do it
Or-
all the time
or
and hope for the sex.
Not even for the sex. You just can't do that, right? Hey, I did this, this, and this. Because what do we call that in therapy? It's like keeping score.
Yeah.
And it's okay to keep score sometimes, on certain things. I think you guys
I be
talked
knowing
about this.
stuff.
Yep.
I be knowing the things.
Yeah. You're that close to a therapist.
Yeah.
I know. But
I
I
think
ain't
we
going to
all are
school, though.
probably.
I ain't going to
But
school.
if you keep scoring that way, then that can build resentment. You're
Yes.
like, I do all these things.
Yes.
You don't do
Well,
stuff.
and what's really fun, I didn't even mention, I wish I'd have mentioned this on y'all's show, but so I have that same struggle where I'm like, I need to get back into my body once I'm into my head and I'm like scrubbing crap and making food and I'm pissed or whatever. So I actually made an app, like in our app, there is a meditation.
Uh-huh.
It's a get in the mood
Oh, I love it.
Sex
meditation.
Yep.
It's for mindfulness.
Really?
And literally, it's like has music behind it. I'm reading a thing I wrote, and it's like, okay, I want you to like sit here and you do box breathing for a minute. You follow the music, and then it's like you think about your body. You think about your partner touching you, the things you like, you
Love
touching
this
them, like
idea.
what things about touching them bring you, like what makes you feel really good. And the whole point is to get back into your body, because I think for women that's a really big struggle. Like when you,
100%.
Incongruence.
you just got done reading in your book club.
Yes.
You read Come As You Are.
Yes. Emily Nagoski, it's amazing.
And so it was like that insight of like, oh, I need to like.
Did you
'cause
read that?
No.
I
you
read it,
should.
and I was like, what?
It's
We
an
talked
audiobook.
about
That's
it
a
lot.
thing for y'all?
I felt like I read it.
Yeah.
Through adjacentness.
I read half of it. I
But
didn't read it all.
I could
But what I
read it.
did read was like,
It's amazing.
know
It's
that.
The
so
breaks and
good.
accelerators we talked a lot about.
Uh-huh.
It was super helpful. I think to get into your mind thing, and
I think
part of
that's
it,
so good.
I had to realize that there's some things I cannot do for Melissa.
right.
As far as sex, like if her mind's not there,
Not just that, there's some things I just simply, even if you could, I don't want you to.
Yeah.
right? So there's ownership. You didn't. Maybe you actually said this verbally. You don't want me to take ownership over your sex life. So I think
big.
for me, what the desire is a more conversational relationship about this. Because right now it feels very stab in the dark, hope for the best. It doesn't feel like we are working together on this. It feels like I'm working for it, and like some days there's good days, some days are bad.
Yeah.
And it's not
Exact.
necessarily.
That's
It's
how
just
Like
feel
cross
like,
your fingers, like
yeah, literally. It feels like my cross to bear to just like hope for the best, and sometimes and it can just be like, man, what can I do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I realize obviously, and I say obviously because it should be obvious, but it's not. You realize obviously it can't be the same way every time,
Yeah.
right? But in our mind, you're just like, everything else works like that.
Yeah.
You go in your car, if there's gas in it and things work, you turn the key, it turns on.
Yeah.
But in your marriage, your relationship, there's all type of factors. Is Melissa stressed because we got a lot of work? Have we been traveling like crazy? Are we in different time zones? We were in Chicago the other night and we couldn't sleep, so it was like 3 a.m. in Chicago time. Then we flew back. She didn't sleep, so then we came home last night. She's exhausted. You know what I mean? There's so many different things to weigh that it can't be robotic.
Right.
If you don't want it to be robotic sexually, it can't be robotic, the other way.
Yeah. One of the best things that I learned from, actually, she was one of my professors in grad school, and then we did some episodes with her, Dr. Tina Shermer-Sellers, and she talks about sex like revolving around the idea of connection and pleasure, right?
And those are your only goals, connection
there's
and
nothing
pleasure. There's
robotic
nothing
around
else,
it. There's
yeah.
not, I'm not in charge of hers. She's not in charge of mine. It's like, where do I find connection with her on that real emotional level?
Yeah.
And then pleasure, right? And that's like, we try to do that. It's easy to forget because sometimes it's like, yo, I'm feeling it, you know, and you just want to, hit the O.
Yeah.
And then it's like, that's not what it's about.
Oh my, that's good. I like that idea of
too.
connection and pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because one thing I didn't realize until I'm currently realizing, so much about it is connection.
Right.
And you can't get to that pleasure. Well, she can't get to that pleasure without connection. I we could not be connected at all. And I could still
That's
get
how
to
it is.
the same
Yeah.
pleasure. Because for me, the pleasure, it's reverse.
Right.
The pleasure part makes me feel more
connected,
connected.
yeah.
And for
Yep.
her, it's the inverse. Connection leads to pleasure. So it just feels very different, for a man to understand her when that's not the way your body sees it or your mind
or even
sees it.
works.
Yeah, because she talked about non-congruence. Like sometimes my mind feels this way, my body feels this way, or my body feels this way, my mind feels this way in regards to sex. I very rarely ever have that.
Right.
Whoever is thinking about sex, the other part goes. If my mind's thinking about sex, the body's like, hey, sex.
Yeah.
My body's thinking about sex, the mind joins. It's never like when I'm having sex, my mind is like, I'm not really that into that. And that's a common occurrence for women from what I'm told about women.
So what has your journey been then? Like, share as much as you want to. So I think this is a really interesting topic. Like, how did you work through it, or are you working through it?
Still working through it, most definitely. Number one is educating myself. Has been the biggest, I would say, help is reading books like Come As You Are. But to be honest, I would say that's more recently the most impactful book. I even remember reading a book called The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex by Sheila Gregoire, I think is her last name, Sheila Ray Gregoire. I read that years ago. Have you read that book?
I haven't, but yeah, I've heard of it.
I read that years ago, and it was the first book. It was the first book that empowered me. So typically going back to being an object in his sex life, I often repeat it to myself, and something that I just kind of believed. And it's kind of like a subtext to sex conversations when you grow up churchy is men are sexual beings. And if you don't have sex with him as a sexual being, he's going to find it somewhere else. So you run the risk of him cheating on you. So I'm like, well, God, I don't want my husband to cheat on me. Let me lay down and be nice. And so reading this book was the first time where it was like, you're a sexual being. You deserve pleasure as well. You can take ownership of your sex life. And it was like, why didn't I think of this? Oh my God, it's not just about him. I'm not just doing this for him. My body doesn't just have to be his. It's something that I can enjoy. It's something that I can be vested in.
When
and
did you read this?
Years ago.
You know what's interesting, and I hate to stop you, but I'm going to go to. That's probably the first time that thought was taught to you.
100%.
Your parents didn't teach you that. You didn't have, there's nothing about sex like that in movies or TV that you watch. The church didn't do it through the pulpit or your groups. So you didn't internalize that is how you should feel at all.
No.
So you're 25, 30 years old at this time, and that's the first time that thought is entering the first time ever that somebody said this is okay for you to think like this.
Yes.
No one has ever taught you that. So it's almost a wonder that you've gotten to this point because you're not starting from, like, imagine if your mom at 10 had said, hey, Melissa, you are a sexual being yourself. There's pleasure when you do this and that. And when you have your husband, this is how your sexual feelings are going to change. And this is how you'd have been like, okay, this would have been a different starting point to begin from, as a point to, like, not only not starting from there, you're starting from way back as sex is bad and wrong and your body's not your own. To get to all the way to your body is your own and sex is great. That is a great
journey. And to go even further back, before even the realization that I'm starting far back, I'm back here because I'm actually ignorant. So the first step
personally.
is right. So the first step is actually the journey from ignorance to recognizing where I am.
Ignorance to knowledge.
Yes. And then that knowledge to recognizing where I want to be.
Knowledge
So
to
it's like
ownership.
two different, phases that I really went through. And the
You already
first,
had kids at this time.
I know. And honestly, the first book, outside of the 5 Love Languages, that was more relationship based. Even the Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus was more very relationship based. The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex. Thank you very much. That was the first book that was specifically targeted, I feel like, to me.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
very specifically talking about sex. And it was the first book that I was like, wait a minute. Like you said, like, oh my God, I can have some ownership in this. And that's part of the reason why I repeat even to this day, I don't want you to take ownership of this. When you
Right.
say you want to fix things, and we've had these conversations, I don't want you to fix it.
Well, you know what?
Don't take ownership of stuff. I'm not even asking you to. You know what I
That's
mean?
what
Yeah.
you're taught as a man. You
Oh,
gotta
yeah.
you
Yeah.
take
That's the narrative that we.
yes, you take her virginity.
Yep.
Yes.
You literally take her virginity.
Ah.
You got to convince her. You've got to coax her. You got to tell her what she likes. She doesn't know what she likes. Try, even in like magazines, Cosmo, Maxim,
Yep.
she doesn't know what she likes. Try this. It'll, you know what I mean? So,
My visceral, I just,
I know.
when
Yeah.
you said that,
because that's
I
what,
hate that.
so you're taking in these things, and then
Right.
nobody was telling me that this is wrong.
Mm.
Like I didn't have any conversations with my dad about this. The church, we didn't really talk about it. So it's
Yeah.
like the same way you were being reinforced of what you thought. Everything around me in media is the
Yeah.
guy comes in and he takes his virginity and he's
wow.
this
Yeah.
and bravado. So I'm learning these things. I'm supposed to tell you what you like. Supposed to do this, and this is what you're supposed to do. And then she's learning the inverse. So now when it's like, when she's like, no, I want to learn this on my own. I don't want you to be a part of it. Now it's just like,
Well, what do I do over here?
yeah.
What?
Nothing. And that's kind of the point.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That's interesting. One of the things that makes me think is how you're like in all of that time when you were ignorant of that and then you had the knowledge of that, all of the forces of your mind are working against you to take ownership because it
Yes.
literally is like you have wired your mind.
Yes.
You wired your mind to be told what to do. You
Yep.
wired your mind. How should I behave? I look to external sources for my behavior,
Yep.
my cues. I lay down and be nice.
Yes.
Like think about just the.
and that was even rewarded,
Yeah, think about
expected.
Yeah, the insane
Yeah.
mind shift that you have to do, and then that has to translate to your body, and then his like
Yes.
it has to translate relationally as well. It's so.
It's been
incredible.
It's a chasm.
It is. And it's
Girl, you got a big chasm.
Yeah, man. It
Girl, you got a
was.
big chasm
It
with
was.
your
Got that thing up. I knew that's where he was going.
You don't
That
know
was-
my jokes before I
That
know
was
my
a
jokes.
Seattle. Isn't he from Seattle?
No,
Who?
that's Juvenile. That's your thing. Is Sir
Oh,
Mix-a-Lot.
I'm thinking of. Yeah, I am
Yeah,
thinking
he's
of Sir Mix-a-Lot.
Sir
Sir Mix-a-Lot's from
He be
Seattle.
out there
He's
too.
like in
Oh, yeah,
Kent.
yeah.
He
He's
just be
bi
chilling.
with-
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw him all the time.
That's
Yeah.
And be like, just call me
In
Anthony.
Renton.
Yeah.
think he
He
stays
had
in
car
Renton.
clubs and stuff.
Yeah.
That's
me.
funny. Total
What were you
side note.
saying?
That I 100% agree. It's been a huge journey, and I shared this with you guys. I don't remember, Cho. We did 2 podcasts. I don't
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
where we
yeah.
shared it. But I shared my definition of brainwashing, which is holding on to the lie after being confronted with the truth. And so the part of the reason I say it's been my life's journey is because I've read all the books, Cho. I've listened to all the podcasts, hours and hours and hours and hours of podcasts. I've listened to them. I've read them. I've audio listened. I've sat down and listened. I've done all the things. And I'm still on a journey.
Yeah.
I'm still
Now
on
you got to
this
do your
journey.
residency, your
Child.
your
And I
clinical
just-
trials.
Yes,
your
and I
actual
don't
work.
know that I will ever, and I don't mean this like negatively or as a way of like to just be discouraging, but as more of a way for me to always be like hyper aware that it's easy, something that you were saying earlier, it's easy to fall back into my old patterns. It's easy to fall back
Yeah.
into my family of origin. And so I could
Default.
never, my default, I can never relax in this. I always have to be hyper aware of this is where I was, this is where I want to go, and I have to continue to work toward that. Otherwise, it's so much easier to just be lazy, especially when it comes. I'm tired, and I'm tired every day. Okay, I'm always tired.
You know what's funny
I
about
always
that?
have something to do.
I
Yeah.
thought when we didn't have regular jobs, I was like, she's not going to be tired no more because you don't have to get up and go to work. She works harder now.
Yeah.
And because at least her job when she was working in aerospace, she didn't have a work computer or work phone.
Oh.
So when she left her job,
Her
there's
juice-
literally
yeah.
no more
Nothing.
work to do.
Oh,
Clocked out, I
that'd
was
be
done.
so nice.
Blocked out,
Yeah.
right? Real. I haven't had a job like that in a while. Even my old job, it was always searching for the internet. She now has taken that same, her work ethic hasn't changed. Now the workload has shifted where there's always something.
Yeah.
She firing off. Even last night, I was like, girl, can we just chill out and watch this show so we can connect, possibly have sex? Didn't say that part. Was thinking it.
Yeah.
She's like, I got to order this food. because I
The
wanted
lunch
to
we
arrive.
just got.
Yeah.
I've got to figure out a way to order. I know I've done this before. How can I make sure this is right? Because we have guests tomorrow. We got to do this. And you know what I mean? Like, in her old job, she couldn't have been doing that at that time.
Yeah.
There's no work to be done. But now, so that's another like obstacle in, because her personality, she's a workaholic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so am
And
I.
now the work is just, I could always be searching for work because it's always an email popping up, always a thing to do. So there's more things to maneuver through. And that's the whole thing about marriage. It's like there's so much change that happens. Like this last year of change is probably the biggest amount of change since we moved to LA.
Yeah.
Like there was going from probably the 4 biggest ones in our marriage are going from no kids to kids,
Yep.
Melissa's parents getting divorced, moving to LA, and then us going from both working full-time jobs to being entrepreneurs. And these are massive, like tectonic plate shifting. They shift
That was a good
everything
word.
in your marriage, how you view each other, your kids, sex. I mean, communication, all that stuff shifts, and we're still navigating that. And then dealing with all this previous, baggage, for lack of a better word, of your previous life. And I think one thing you said on our podcast that I think I'll take with me forever is when things get hard, you default
Yeah.
to your family of origin or the way you normally did stuff.
Yeah.
Like if you're tired, you default. That click, like that makes sense because you're not even starting from a place of sexual freedom and liberation.
Right.
So your default is like, okay, lay down, be nice, because that's what you were taught for 30 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So just at least knowing that, you know what to work with.
And just being aware of it, and then like at least having the mindset that's like, okay, I gotta unlearn this
Yes.
stuff, and having that growth mindset. We talk a lot about that on the show, which has been like phenomenal. Growth versus fixed mindset, because fixed mindset you just like go to the default and go to the old,
Yes.
but growth is like even
That's good.
It's
That is,
so
that's
you
good.
gotta say that again.
That was good.
Well, it's not my
Growth
words.
versus, I don't care.
Yeah.
It's your words to me. Growth versus fix is a
Fixed.
different
Yeah.
approach.
Right.
To just have growth means I'm working on this.
Yeah.
It doesn't like a friend of mine is a recovering alcoholic, and one of the things that he said that kind of blew my mind, he was like, I will never have this under control.
Right.
It is an everyday challenge,
Right.
an everyday goal to just hit the pillow that night sober.
Right.
And some days are easy, some days are hard. There's parties, there's holidays, but it's the growth. It's not something you can fix.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it's something you can grow towards. And actually, one thing Melissa and I have said on our podcast, I think kind of goes along with growth versus fix, is giving each other the grace
Yes.
for transition.
Right.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I could give Melissa more grace knowing what she's doing, because you go from like, what I want or what I'm taught and what she's taught, like that I could be adding more pressure to her by being like, man, I want this, or even, I don't remember what the book was, but or maybe it was a podcast, you were talking about higher desire, lower desire. And one thing is like, if you're higher desire, you have a great sexual experience, your tendency is to be like, oh, that was so great, when can we do that again?
Yeah.
And that has the adverse effect on the lower desire person, because now you're putting pressure on
Yeah.
them.
Right. Oh,
And
I
had
got performed
never-
it this way and recreate that. Yeah.
and
that was
now I'm
hard
like,
for
that
them,
one,
yeah.
make them all like that.
Yeah.
And you just like, like, oh, like
It was
a
a
dog.
podcast, but I don't remember which one it was.
Podcast. So it's like, I want it like that. And that I thought it was like, that would make you feel good.
Yeah.
Because that is what our potential is. And it has the offer. You're like, oh crap, I don't even know what I did. I don't know how I got there. And the factors, it's like, even like if we think of it like science, every time they do trials, they have to notate all these factors.
Right.
This is the day, this is the time, this is the weather, and now we'll notate it. Now you have to, there's the day, the time, the where we are, how we feel, our connection level, and we're expecting these, exact results with different variables.
Right.
And they're just never going to be the same. How you feel that day, and sometimes we don't even know what it is. Like it's just something just feels off.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. So
Yeah.
this has been great. I'm not meaning to end it. I'm just
No,
saying
no,
this is
no,
a
no.
lot of information
It's like-
to process that is valuable.
Yeah.
It makes me think of because we don't obviously have palm trees up in Seattle, and these like huge palm trees, right? And we're just looking at them like, wow, that's crazy, right? So a palm tree, if a storm comes, they can bend probably all the way over,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But if you get our trees up in the Northwest and, you know, some crazy hurricane, they'd snap, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm thinking of these palm trees out here, they're fixed. They wake up they wake up every day with a growth mindset. It's like, oh, it might be sunny, I'll chill today. I don't have to move, right?
Yeah.
But I'm prepared if some wind comes through or whatever.
Come
So it's
on
like,
and
okay.
take us to church.
Right? So it's like marriages, we fall into these traps of like, okay, family of origin, it's going to be this way because culture taught me this, church taught me this, she's going to do this, I'm going to do that. You know, I'm going to be the leader, she'll be this or whatever.
Right.
And then we go, oh, wait a minute, life isn't that way,
Right.
right? So having
Doesn't
a
work like
fixed
that.
mindset is not helpful in that. So
Right.
growth.
I love all this conversation, and I feel like this personal growth is so amazing. And then the next step, because we got kids, now we got to teach
Yes.
our kids. So since you're on our show and we're not on your show right now, we're not being like weird. So when are you guys going to start your network for parents and families that we'll be a part of, and we'll all teach our kids? And
such
You
a
know
we'll,
good
what's funny?
idea.
We were talking about that this morning because we were
Ooh.
telling our podcast people like we were talking about like getting you guys on there. I think it's something we should work for 2020.
I think so too.
I think we could like have shared resources
Yes.
and like
That's a good idea.
Yeah,
Get
absolutely.
it
It's like
started.
these people are
Especially my
approved.
favorites. Because
Yeah.
I have definitely
Yeah.
Melissa approved because I'm a podcast junkie.
I love network.
And yes, I love
Yep.
it. And so
Oh.
people ask
The
me
Love
all
Network.
the time,
Oh, there
what do I listen
Google
to? Who do I listen to? And I literally
Copyright it now, so
I know.
get the domain
That's
name.
what I
Yeah,
was
go
gonna
buy
say.
it. Go get the .com.
GoDaddy.com.
I love
Anyway,
it.
So
well,
hold up. So one thing, and this, I think you guys will like this. So one thing that we talk about, how we have to teach our kids this stuff,
Yeah,
because
that's
guess
good.
what? You guys
We're
got two
their
boys,
family
right?
of origin.
Yeah.
We right now are creating their family of origin.
Yes.
What they think of as, do
That's
they take
powerful. So when
you
virginity?
hit
Is
that
that,
idea,
you know?
Powerful.
You're like,
That's
oh, they're-
pressure too.
it is
Yeah.
the pressure because they're going
I
to
don't
be
want to
talking
jack
about
them
it,
up.
Yeah.
right?
We're
It's
supposed
too
to talk
late
with
for
sex
our
about
kid.
them too. We were supposed to have that sex talk with the boys, and we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah,
Our
that's
neighbor
a
is
big
a
one.
pediatrician, and she had a sex talk with her daughters and their friends. And I'm going to I literally want
a
to just be
group?
like, okay, do it again.
Yeah.
Because it's like from a doctor's perspective, but a mother's perspective. It's all, I
Yes.
mean, oh, it's so good. But anyway, we want to thank
Yeah.
you guys for being on
Of
our
course,
show.
of
Thank you
course.
guys
Thank
so
for having
much.
us.
We can't wait to hang out again.
Yes.
I don't even know. Do
I know.
anything.
I
So,
love it.
So for all of your guys' stuff, tell people what you want them to find.
I'll let Melissa tell them.
You can find Kevin at Kev on Stage on all social media platforms. I am at Miss Kev on Stage on all social media platforms. You can also find the Love Hour podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And can I pitch our conference?
Oh yeah. Oh, Atlanta
Oh
2020.
yes.
Yep.
So we have a Love Hour conference coming in Atlanta 2020, which I'm so freaking excited about. We have 2 tiers of admission. We have our VIP, which is actually sold out, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. We're going to do a vow renewal service, which I'm super excited about. Kevin's going to officiate. I hate my wedding day pictures. I hated my dress. I hated my makeup. I hated my hair. I hated everything.
That is such a
Are
good
you
idea to
gonna
redo
go
that.
Every
all
time you
out?
say that, I
Oh.
always feel bad.
Can I?
Yeah.
Don't
can
own
we
I
this.
just-
always feel like
Don't own
it
this.
was great. It was a
Yeah.
great day for
Yeah.
me.
Seth had looked back at our wedding pictures the other day and he goes, "Why didn't we dress up?" And I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, we didn't know nothing. We didn't know.
Listen,
know
we
either.
were
Keep
so
talking.
young
Keep talking.
and I didn't tell people the way I wanted things to be done. And so I had the wedding for everyone else. And now I hate my wedding day pictures.
Yeah.
And I recognize that that's a story a lot of people have. And there's adults, when's the last time we get dressed up and get cute? And
Yeah.
so I want to just offer that experience. Retake your pictures, create a new memory for that day, renew your vows. So that's going to take place on Thursday. And then on Friday and Saturday, we're going to have our breakout sessions. We have everything covered from sexuality to finances to blended families. Singles are welcome to come.
Love
It's going to be a
it.
great event. In the evening, we have date night activities. We're going to do a comedy show. Kevin is a comedian, if that's hasn't been clear. And then we have 2 females comedians coming out. They're going to be phenomenal. It's going to be a really good time. And then on on Saturday, we're going to close out the whole weekend with a 90s party.
Nice.
So get dressed up in your 90s gear, listen to some great 90s music, Nehu with Kevin. It's going to be a fun time. So if you're interested in that, it's available. And more information, the speakers and all of that's available at thelovehour.com.
When
And
was
that's
the
in
date
March?
of that? Was
It's July
July.
9th, 10th, and 11th
Oh.
of 2020. We have payment plans. That's why told people like super early.
Yeah.
So people can get their money in order, because money be's a hater. Your kids are a hater.
Money be's a hater.
Bills are a hater.
Yep.
And so you be wanting to do stuff, and your wallet be like, child, no, you can't do that. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. And so I wanted people to have the opportunity to plan.
Yeah.
And so there's payment plans available. And again, it's in July 9th, 10th, and 11th.
Yeah, we'll get all the
Nice.
links and we'll share everything with
Thank
our
you.
audience. So this has been a blast. Thank you
Thank
for letting
you
us
guys
use your
so much.
studio,
For real.
all of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming out. We've had a phenomenal
This is
time.
so good.
This has
All
been
right.
great.
Well, we'll see y'all later.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Later.